T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.
Hey everyone, welcome to Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. I'm your host, Leslie Colon, and joining me, as always, the beautiful Emily Mae. How are you?
I'm good, Leslie. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited. We're finally back talking about another episode of Rhodes to the Top. The schedule has been a little bit all over the place. That's why we're here.
We are here on a Wednesday, but we still have episodes to talk about. That's why.
Yeah.
I was like, we can't get enough.
No, we can't. And there's a lot. Well, we had a short episode, but there's still like big moments that I definitely want to talk about because some things I did not like. So let's get right into it. First things first, obviously, Brandi is really close to giving birth. So Cody goes on his own, and then the sister and mom come over. We all know I'm not a big fan of Teal just because of her little comments that she makes. I feel like she's a little mean. But thoughts, Emily, on this interaction? They're watching Dynamite, but the vibe is not all really there.
Yeah, I mean, there was some tension. Can we talk about that? Like, you could cut it with a knife.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it started right away. I find it really sweet that they came over, watched the show with Brandi, but then you're like, wait, there's some tension. Like, why go over and cause all this trouble and say those really passive-aggressive comments about her getting into the ring without... that was tough for me to watch.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. Apparently, Teal had no idea that Brandi was thinking of getting back into the ring, even though she's been talking about it literally this whole season. She talked about it the entire time at the baby shower, and there was another comment about that during the baby shower as well. So you're telling me that you're surprised that she wants to get back in the ring after the baby. Like, we all know she knew. But, of course, she had to make her comments. And, I don't know. It's just like, what is the need for that? Like, what does she gain out of making, like, Brandi's life hard? Like, it seems like she wants to do that when Brandi is already having a really tough time in this pregnancy.
I know. So, by the way... Brandi was making me so nervous throughout this episode because I could tell that she was having trouble breathing and she had like heartburn, and you could feel when she was talking about how like heavy it felt, and it just felt like I felt that for her. Like, you could see that. Yeah. I would say that Teal might be feeling a little left out of all of the exciting things, right? That's happening in their lives, like wrestling world, I feel like there's some kind of, obviously we know there's some baggage there. Yeah. And so maybe she's feeling a little, she's missing that attention. She feels like she wants to be connected with her family. And this is like, because how having a kid changes you and you might not have the same relationship with your sibling, right? And even though it's her brother, like there might be some you know, some issues there where she's worried that she's not going to have the same relationship. Just like when Brandi and when they got engaged and got married, like there was tension. Yeah. So it just might be like an extension of that. Oh my God, the chat is saying hi.
Yeah, I know. We got to say hi to everyone. Shout out to Joseph for always being here. Hi, Ryan. My friend Johan is in here. Hola, Johan. ¿Cómo estás? Robert Rorito? Did I say that right?
From Puerto Rico.
I love it. What's up, everyone? We're so happy, you know, that you guys are here joining us. Let us know your opinion on Teal. Obviously, she is not afraid of sharing her opinion with Brandi or with anyone of what she's feeling. So I do have to agree with you, Emily. I think it's a lot of like, maybe she's feeling left out, but in a way, to me, it's like she probably connected with Dusty about wrestling, and probably Teal didn't have that connection with her dad in regards to wrestling. So maybe that's why she's so aggressive towards Brandi, because Brandi did have that connection with him. They did have that bond that the brothers did as well. And maybe she is feeling left out. You know, they all have a position at AEW, but she doesn't. So I would like to know her story on whether she just chose not to get into wrestling. Was it not her thing? Or was she not allowed to? Maybe that's why she's angry too. Because if she wasn't allowed to, then she's probably hating on Brandi. Like, well, you're kind of taking away what I was supposed to do in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the full history of like how much she was involved in the wrestling industry. I know that it's in her like it's multi-generational, right? So it's like having the ability to have some connection, and I feel like she's trying to hold on to the past while trying to have her name and her dad's name continue on. And we got a little bit in previous episodes where she's very protective of that name, which is understandable. But sometimes you have to, like we'll see in this episode, kind of put out that peace offering and say, okay, like can I be the bigger and better person by saying, okay, but that we'll get into it. I don't want to jump. I don't want to jump into it.
Let's talk about it, because there, you know,
okay. It sounds like
big moment in this like moment where they're watching Dynamite, and then there's this. You think she's being the bigger person in this, giving her that peace offering, because she was pretty clear that it wasn't for her. It was for the baby, and it's so that she can have like a close relationship with the baby. So I don't know. To me, like, yes, you're doing something nice, but it was still aggressive. So I don't feel like her intentions were very like, I don't know.
So I kind of want to believe, like Cody went like went the full direction of like, oh no, if you accept this gift, if you put this bracelet on our baby X, like it's gonna be an issue, right? You're gonna forever be stuck, right? And I want to give her the benefit of the doubt that it was a peace offering and saying, hey, you get a little piece of me, and hopefully I can have a little piece of this baby's life and in your life. I want to believe that it was a good thing.
Well, Emily, let me tell you, that's just you being nice. I think
you're like, that's not the reality. This is a reality show.
Yeah.
We have to talk about the reality of it.
Well, and the reality is, like Rorito said, sorry if I'm saying your like name wrong. Teal is thinking that Brandi is going to ruin the Rhodes legacy. She needs to be supportive of her brother. And I agree. Like, we talked about this in the previous episode. Like, they've been married for a long time. And I mean, I don't know, like we talked about this off air, Emily, how it's like a lot when obviously you marry into a family, and it's not just like your family, you have to deal with your in-laws and then your own family maybe getting jealous. So it's a lot, obviously, marriage in general, but you would think that after so many years it would get a little bit better, and with the baby coming it would get a little bit better. And like Brandi saying, she's like, I thought with this baby it was going to get better, but it's clearly not. And like she said, and that's okay. It is what it is. So I have to agree with Brandi, and it is what it is.
It is, exactly. Like after a while, just resign. You're like, you know what? is going to be what it's going to be. And like, you just deal with those bridges and you cross them when you need to. So in my personal life, we had this moment where my sister had her baby, and I was like, I was talking to my sister, and I was like, you realize it's going to get more complicated. Like, you think it's simple now. You're like, oh, like you get gifts and it's always exciting. And then all the grandparents are involved and all the aunts and uncles. And it gets, right, you know this, right? Yeah. You're like competing for time and competing for, attention, right? Mm-hmm. It's really bad with grandparents. But I feel like this is Teal's way of saying, okay, I'm going to be in this baby's life. Here's my first gesture of trying to get attention, right? And trying to be connected. But yeah, well, I know we're talking about this a lot, but
no, you're good. No,
I think it's an important part. Yeah. It's an important part of like how their lives and dynamics are going to change,
Not only that, it's like I felt, to me, aside from the baby being born, we'll get into that. This was like the biggest part in this episode because this baby obviously is going to change the family dynamic. You would think it would bring everyone together. Everyone else has kids. I'm just interested to see once the baby is born how the family is really. I do agree with Joseph and what he says. Brandi was the bigger person. She didn't lower herself to Teal's standards. Brandi is under stress from the fact that AEW is so successful right now. The company is 2 years old. And I do want to mention something that she did say. She has 2 contracts because Teal's thing is like, you're the chief brand officer. You are not a wrestler you wrestle sometimes. It's like, no. She's like, I have 2 separate contracts. One as a chief brand officer and one as a wrestler. So you would think, you either way, even if she didn't have that contract and she's still wrestling, as we've seen in the past with previous wrestlers, everyone always tries to get back into the ring no matter what. No matter injuries, no matter pregnancies, no matter what, like it's this passion that they have and they always want to come back. So it's normal. I don't understand why she's making such a big deal about it.
Well, and the thing is, it really is frustrating because, and I think, let me back up. I think it shows how extremely talented Brandi is that she can take on both roles. And I feel like people don't understand that like building this company from the ground up 2 years ago is, I mean, it happened it happened before. It didn't just magically happen 2 years ago, right? It takes planning. It takes thought. You have to think through who you want involved. You have to have a vision for it, right? And you also have to have a vision for yourself within the company, either as a brand officer or as a wrestler. And the fact that she is taking charge and saying, I'm going to be a wrestler in 6 months or 3 months after I give birth, like she's taking charge of that. And if you look at photos of her now, she took that seriously, right? Yeah. And I think it just shows her dedication and passion for the business and for what they're building. And I think that's a testament to both her and Cody's just like passion. And they're an inspiration, I think, for anyone looking to be a more well-rounded person in this industry, is to not only look at it from like, I can only do stuff in the ring, but looking at it from the outside perspective and saying, I can do anything related, because it's all about telling stories.
Yeah, for sure. And you make a good point here in the fact that like, it's inspirational. And like me looking up to her, I'm like, wow, so cool. Like she can be a wrestler, but she can also hold a position in office that's huge. Like she's the face of AEW in the sense of like, I represent the company and things like that. So, I'm biased, but I'm on Brandi's side. I just feel like in a way she's being attacked, and it's not really fair, especially when now she's bringing, a family member into like this new family. So be a little bit nicer to her. I don't feel like the mom is like that, but I just feel like Brandi mentioned, they both ganged up on her,
Yeah, it wasn't cool. It wasn't a good moment, especially as she's like 8 months pregnant, and you could tell she's struggling. Oh my God, can we talk about the heels call that she had? She had like the virtual event with her AEW ladies, and she's in her 80s. her 80s outfit. And then she is like, oh, I might be going into labor. Like, that shows dedication. Like, she's doing it all the way up to that point, right?
Exactly.
It was the same thing with like the Bella twins, all of the leads we've seen, watching as we watch our reality shows.
Yeah, we do. And I think that was the biggest thing, that we could like kind of compare both of them. It's like they're both dedicated to their position. They both like are about women empowerment. They want to represent. And I love the fact that, she's so passionate about the business. And I think if anything, they should be proud of her. They should hype her up and just let it be. Let her be. So the other big moment, we did see, I like the fact that we always include a lot of different like moments in regards to like wrestler stories and things like that. So I like the fact that they included how they coach the other wrestlers that are up and coming, and it just made me like really connect to everyone when they're like showing the story about the girl who is so lucky to be there training and how she's proud to represent her family and where she comes from. So I just love, like, this was one of the biggest things that we talked about, is the fact that they include other people. It's not just really about them.
Yeah, I mean, what I liked about this episode, which was really cool, is I got to see people I've worked with when they were doing like the training in the ring and stuff. I was like seeing people that I'm like, oh, I've worked with them at Mission Pro, or I've worked with them across Texas or in other like independent shows, or I've seen them like on AEW Dark. And what's nice is I think this gives a good picture of like behind the scenes, right? Of like what you're always training, you're always thinking about how to make yourself better and over 100%, right? So I like that you got to see their training and a little bit of their debuts on the AEW brand.
Yeah, it's so cool. I love, again, the fact that this show is like includes a little bit of everything. It's not only about them, it's just about, the whole company and the people in the company. They have stories, and the fact that they always share someone's story, it's like amazing. But let's talk about this big moment. I think this is one of the moments that we all like wait for, and it's the arrival of baby Liberty. First of all, let's talk about the name. What do you think about the name Liberty Iris? It's definitely unique.
It's perfect. I would not expect anything different.
You're like, that's it. That's what it's supposed to be.
It's perfect. You have to do a name like that. You have to.
Haywood just joined us, and he said sushi and Ritas to you ladies.
Oh.
Interesting. Are you gonna send us some food? Is that
are you sending us some stuff? Because like I'm pretty hungry right now. So.
That actually sounds good. Let's see. Joseph Bosa said it's cool that Cody and Brandi are using the Rhodes to the top as a way of introducing AEW. They could have made it all about themselves, and that is true. They could have made it all about themselves. But I was really hoping that she would show not everything during her birth, the birth of the baby, but more of like a little bit more details. I know they cut it off, and even though it was a C-section, they showed little moments. But I think the biggest thing for me was when they got Cody outside and he was just expressing his feelings and how like he got emotional, and it just changed his whole world. And this is what we were talking about. Once the baby is born, their life is going to change, and we saw that.
I mean, we got a glimpse of it. I feel like this next episode, the season finale, we're going to get a little glimpse of it more. But they were building this whole season. I know we had like a short season, but they've been building it, because that moment that Cody saw her, it's like your life changes. Your whole perspective, your priorities, everything changes. And you could see that. I loved how he got emotional. I loved how C-sections are rough, so I'm glad that everything went well and stuff like that. But that's a really, really long story.
Props to her also, because like you said, C-sections are rough, and I'm surprised. Well, I'm not surprised, but I am surprised that she had to go through a C-section when she mentioned that the baby was upside down. That's normally a sign that they always have to get a C-section, but I know her recovery
sometimes they flip though. Sometimes the babies like naturally sometimes flip, right? But that doesn't always happen in time.
It depends on the baby. If the baby's stubborn and they just stay in their position and they don't.
Stubborn babies.
Yeah. And she was a little stubborn baby. So I know the recovery is going to be something.
Yeah. I mean, I think I really want to know in this next episode whether like when did she start going on the road? Was it a few months? I don't recall seeing I don't remember when she popped back up, but a C-section is at least 6 weeks recovery. And so I'm interested to see what happens. But I also want to say that, did you see that like the ratings, I know we mentioned it last week, but the ratings have been really, really good in like the demographic, like 18 to 49 demographic. And they were like in the top 18 of cable top 150 rankings on this past Saturday, which is kind of amazing for a reality show that's only about 7 episodes.
It's 6, so it's really upsetting. That's one thing I wish that we had more of. I know this is probably just like a test run. They're probably just seeing how it works. But I wanted more. I feel like they have more to give. And I'm really happy that the ratings are good because now they can probably move forward with like maybe a new season. I know like Ms. and Mrs., their seasons are also weird. They have like 10 episodes and then they go MIA and then they come back, which it is.
And they just got renewed for another season. Season 4.
Yep.
Another season.
I think 3.
3?
Yeah, but it's in 2022. But it's just interesting to see, their life. And the biggest thing about reality shows, and I think this is especially with wrestling reality shows, it's like if people who don't watch wrestling can still get into it, then that means your show is a hit. And I think this is what happened with this show. So that's why the ratings are probably amazing, because not only do you have your wrestling fan base, but you also have your fan base who don't necessarily watch AEW or are into wrestling, but they just like the show. So I really like it.
Yeah, I mean, I like how you get an inside look at how AEW works. You get to see Tony Khan in action. You get to see how they talk about building up matches, how they start kind of figuring out how these big pay-per-views are going to work, or even just like the weekly, day-to-day churn of doing a big televised show. And I feel like wrestling fans are quick to judge how a match happened, or wow, that thing happened on TV, but people don't realize the team that goes behind it. And I think you should appreciate it a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure.
But I know it's all in fun. But I think what I like is this really shows how people put on a TV show. Yeah. And I'm hoping we dive into it a little bit more, because again, those wrestling fans, I think, should appreciate it. And
sure.
Yeah.
I do want to answer this one question. How do you compare and contrast this to Ms. and Mrs.? Well, I do believe that Ms. and Mrs. is a little bit more like scripted in a sense. Like they have like one event happening per episode, and that's like the main event in a sense. Like that's all you kind of get into. For example, I remember the one episode about Mrs. Carr that he needed to pass the smog, and it took him the whole episode to pass it. So you do get a little bit more of like the insight into their lives, but I don't think it's as raw as this show, Rhodes to the Top. So I think it's very different in that sense of like Ms. and Mrs. is a little bit more like comedy in a sense, like reality, but Rhodes to the Top is more like, this is their real life. This is what it is, as working in a business, as being wrestlers, but also as being like human beings.
Yeah, and this show, like Ms. and Mrs. is a spinoff of Total Divas, right? So it's a little bit it's kind of that same structure where you're like, where you have shows, but really it's about their lives, and it's about like those moments that happen and the drama and like the excitement and as you said, those funny moments, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like it's contrasts with this one because you get the family drama, but I feel like, and maybe that's because it's the first season, they're setting up kind of the evolution of AEW, right?
Yeah.
but I'm interested to see when there is a second season. When keyword when, that if they are going to still have it very centric to the people involved in the show.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely have to agree with you. Well, that is pretty much it for this episode. It was short. Is there anything else that you want to like touch up on? Because I mean, all we had, to me, what stood out was teal, of course. And Haywood said, more teal, please. I don't know about that. It's just going to get me like all worked up. But also the birth of the baby balanced it out. So I'm happy.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it was a short episode, but it was short and sweet. I think it had the really important moments and the moment we were all waiting for, the birth of Liberty. So I think
Liberty Iris.
I love it. I think I'm just interested to see what's next for them in this finale.
Yeah, me too. Remember, the season finale of the show is this Saturday, but we will be covering it on Sunday at 7 p.m. Pacific time. So make sure wherever you are, I know there's some people from Puerto Rico in here, so I love it. Make sure to write down the time. Sunday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And make sure to follow the show at Women's Wrestling Talk Pod. We have a website, we have Twitter, we have Instagram, we have YouTube channel. But Emily, is there anything else you want to let the people know about where they can find you, what you're doing, any announcements?
Oh my gosh. Well, you guys can follow me on all social media platforms. Emily Mae Heller. I know most of you in the chat, I know we're all friends on social media. But the reason why we are covering the show on Sunday is because I will be at Mission Pro Wrestling in Conroe, Texas, at Southern Star Brewery for Mission Pro's Don't Fear the Reaper show. We will be busy. It will be a busy Saturday night for wrestling in general. So I'm going to just say that. I know there's lots of shows we're all going to be watching and participating in. So if you guys want to watch Mission Pro show as you're balancing all the other shows, including AEW, you can watch it on Title Match Network. So I'm excited about that. And then, yeah, just follow my socials and you'll see some, all my adventures as I travel around the world.
Yeah, pretty fun.
And then it is pretty fun. And then we do have some special panels happening live tomorrow. So you guys don't want to miss that. So look out on Women's Wrestling Talk socials for that, because we have some exciting things happening there. And then what other panels do we have coming up, Leslie? Is that it right now?
That's pretty much it. You guys will have to stay tuned for those. They will be on here, so make sure you stay tuned. It's all of our socials are at WWT Talk Pod, so make sure you follow us. Don't forget to big thing, subscribe to this channel, and you can follow me on all social media at Leslie Colon _. Not only do I talk about wrestling, but I also like football. Football is a big thing for me, so you'll see my tweets out there. I kind of get a little emotional sometimes, but we will see you on Sunday once again at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So write it in your calendar, don't miss it, so we can have some fun for the season finale already. But we will see you on Sunday. Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Fight presents.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show